James Wohlmacher, an invitational top 8 to his name as well. Season 1 invitational was first place heading into the top 8. Was, though, defeated by Brian Koval in that top 8, which Brian Koval ended up winning.
This is our Bitter Blossom and Abzan player.
Indeed. Turn 1, Serum Visions off Dark Slick Shore.
Quite a bit different than both Abzan and Bitter Blossom, just a straight combo archetype.
It's a tough meta, I think, to be playing. And interestingly, I was asked if it was a tough meta to be playing Abzan in.
I'm more into Lightning Bolt than I am Path to Exile right now.
Against those control decks we were seeing, you know, against your Grixis, Abzan's fine. But Thoughtseize from James. 2 copies of Thoughtseize in the main. That's a rare inclusion.
Yeah, you've seen a little bit of flexing happening with lists. We've seen some main deck Leyline of Sanctity out of some players. So kind of that slot going to Thoughtseize here. There's not a lot of wiggle room with this deck.
Walking Ballista, 2 Reality Smashers. 2 more Tron pieces, though it looks like he has double Power Plant, no Mine. Chalice of the Void, and then Eldrazi Temple.
Depending on the hand, you might see a different pick, but Chalice of the Void's pretty easy out of this deck against this hand. Reality Smasher comes online a little bit too slow. Wohlmacher would have to have a very bad hand to look elsewhere.
It looks like to make room for these Thoughtseizes, James has taken all the sleight of hand effects out of the deck. So just on 4 Serum Visions and Temples as his card selection.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. You saw another cantrip enter the format, and James is saying we had too many already.
Urza's Tower into Walking Ballista for Dan Musser. He has his 2 Tron pieces, really hoping to top deck that Mine for next turn.
Start casting some Smashers.
And I guess on his side, it's not immediately clear yet what James done. I should correct myself here. It said that there was no copies of Sleight of Hand. That is incorrect. He actually does have those as he casts one this turn.
Yeah, so there's nothing fancy on the list. There are 2 copies of Spoils of the Vault, but previously we've seen some like mystical teachings and some weird stuff.
Right. Yeah, actually 2 Spoils is lower than what you sometimes see in the stock lists. 3 being the number that players will go toward. But you're right, and there's no copies of Leyline of Sanctity in the main. And I think that's a nod to there being less Death Shadow.
Yep.
Dan does not have the turn 3 Tron, but he did pick up Thought Knot Seer, so it means that Eldrazi Temple in his hand will cast it on turn 3. And we see James's hand. Looks like he has Angel's Grace, Phyrexian Unlife, Ad Nauseam, Gemstone Mine, and Simian Spirit Guide. So if this Thought Knot Seer had not happened, James was 1 untapped land away from winning next turn. Or one Simian Spirit Guide.
Yeah, he has the stuff he needs. He's a little shy on the mana.
Yeah, I mean, the straightforward play is for Dan just to take the Ad Nauseam. The combo here is Ad Nauseam plus Angel's Grace or Ad Nauseam plus Phyrexian Unlife. You can also combine Spoils of the Vault with either of the white cards. So it's an A plus B combo. It's basically a white card plus a black card.
It's a bit harder for Musser to win through Unlife than it is for him to win through Angel's Grace.
Right.
So it's a good argument to go for that one as well.
Yeah. I think what he'll choose to do is just to take care, like I said, it's a black, take care of the half of the combo. Now James has to find the black half of the combo again.
With redundant pieces on that side, you can't really disrupt that.
Yeah. Right. The card filtering in Ad Nauseam is good, but not great. A lot of it is, it's Serum Vision, Sleight of Hand, and Temples, and that's about it.
Yeah. You can't be off of mana and cantrip your way out of that problem because you have to spend mana on all your cantrips.
Phyrexian Unlife is the play for James. So this card, a bit of a weirdo. You don't lose the game for having less than 0 life, or 0 or less. And once you get to 0, then all damage is dealt to as though it had Infect. Reality Smasher the play for Dan, and he will smash in for 10. James drops to 7. It gives him another attack. If all this damage from Dan happens at once, it'll send James to a negative number, and then he'll have to take 10 more.
For that reason, you'll frequently see the Ad Nauseam player leverage in Angel's Grace even when you control on life just to stay above 0 for a turn.
Yeah, it buys you another fog effect. And now that the Unlife's in play, as long as it doesn't leave play, James doesn't really need the Angel's Grace in his hand.
And the Ballista even complicates those lines, because Dan can just use that, throw some mana at the Ballista, bring James to lower than 1 outside a combo, force an Angel's Grace. You can do that on either player's turn as well, so it's a little bit messy.
Another gemstone mine for James. He does have that Simian Spirit Guide in hand, so when he finds a black spell, he should be set. But right now, he can just draws up, ramps up toward that Pentad Prism.
Yeah, plenty of mana available. Nothing really to do with it.
He ideally would like to not use the Simian Spirit Guide in case his top deck is Spoils of the Vault. This is the reason why I'd play the Prism. There's a chance that if Spoils of the Vault on the way to finding Ad Nauseam exiles away too many of his Simian Spirit Guides, that he actually can't combo that turn.
Right.
He's not playing a one of Desperate Ritual that you sometimes see in the list. He just has those 4 Spirit Guides for the fast mana to execute the kill. So keeping one in his hand, playing the Prism means he gets to keep the Spirit Guide in hand on the combo turn, and that's a smart move.
Yep. And he really couldn't meaningfully use the Simian Spirit Guide to chump block anyway, so maintaining that makes sense as well.
James down to -3, so now the Phyrexian Unlife is online. Dan does have 10 points of damage, so it's 1 turn clock. Dan will really force a top deck. Here is Thought-Knot Seer. Feels like it's Ad Nauseam, Spoils the Vault, or bust for James.
Yep. Has to be something that is Ad Nauseam or that redraws into Ad Nauseam.
Casts Angel's Grace, loses the Simian Spirit Guide. And James, 1 draw step here. Can he do it? He does not. Game 1 goes to Dan Musser.
Yeah, despite having his Chalice Thoughtseed right away, he had enough time to convert Thought-Knot Seer, and that was the whole game.
Yeah, 2 Thought-Knot Seers is strong for Dan. The Thoughtseize out of James's deck, it's a nod to faster combo decks, which there are. Ad Nauseam wins on turn 4. It's actually sometimes okay that it's a slower combo deck because it has cards like Angel's Grace. I'm not sure then about the Thoughtseize in the deck just because against these other more fair decks, you see there, it didn't matter all that much.
Yeah. If you're playing against a counterspell deck, you can hit a counterspell, that's something.
Yeah.
Hitting Chalice is not nothing, but yeah, it was pretty low impact.
And that does matter. Ad Nauseam struggles to beat decks that are full of counterspells. That said, though, we'll look at the sideboard on James Wohlmacher's side. He has 4 Leyline of the Void, 2 Wall of Shards, 2 Collective Brutality, an Echoing Truth, a Disenchant, a Slaughter Pact, a Dreadship Brief, a Dragonlord Dromoka, a Hurkyl's Recall, and a Swan Song.
So there's a few things you can look at. Theoretically, you can go for Leyline of the Void to turn off Thought-Knot Seer, and that's fine. I'm pretty interested in Echoing Truth because you can bounce Chalice of the Void if that gets in your way. Also, sometimes bouncing Thought-Knot Seer, give yourself some redraws, buy some time, that can matter. You might even see Disenchant come in just as a way to deal with Chalice of the Void as well. Then we go over to Musser's side. We have 3 Relic of Progenitus, 2 Warping Whale, 2 Blight Herder, 2 Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Ratchet Bomb, 2 Spatial Contortion, and 2 Sorceress Spyglass. There's not a ton that matters here. It's pretty slow. You could try to Ratchet Bomb down Phyrexian Unlife, but that's just not really much of interaction.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan on that one. All of the cards from James, you know, Warping Whale can counter sorceries, but there really aren't sorceries in the Ad Nauseam deck.
Yeah, Warping Whale against Serum Vision is not exactly a win.
It's not great. Relic of Progenitus, James' deck doesn't use the graveyard very much. I'm not sure we're going to see any sideboarding out of Dan Musser.
No, light if any, realistically.
Yeah, from either player.
Yeah, the main deck has a couple Dismember, a couple All Is Dust.
So he mentioned James Wohlmacher had that invitational top 8 at the Season 1 Invitational. Did lose the match to Brian Koval, who ended up being the champion. You see Brian here as, in addition to being the invitational champion, got his art on a custom token. He chose the 1/1 Monastery Mentor Monk token here with Prowess, an Eternal Aficionado, and he has his art with, you see a lot of these vintage throwbacks on the card.
Yep.
You can get that all of Season 2. We give it away to all Open participants, all Classic participants here at one of our SCG Open weekends. Also, if you can't make it out to one of our events, you can get them from our store. They ship with all orders from StarCityGames.com of at least $5.
I like that it is a token created by a white creature, but still goes for Mox Sapphire as a necklace. Correctly acknowledging that Sapphire is the best Mox.
You don't want to trigger it with white cards. what card would you even cast? So Sorceress Spyglass, this is out of Ixalan. Dan had chosen to put them in his sideboard. Do you think this is something we'll see more of in Modern?
It's reasonable being able to see your hand again in a matchup where you have multiple things that you want to shut off with Pithing Needle. That can make some sense.
for reference here, this is the 2-mana artifact. As it enters the battlefield, you look at your opponent's hand, and then you choose a card name. Activated abilities of that card can't be used unless they're mana abilities.
Hits a number of things in Modern. Planeswalkers, fetch lands. No, probably not that
Fetch
one.
lands is mean.
You certainly want to crack them in response.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that much. Ether Vial's a nice one to hit.
Is there a specific deck that you think he has them in his sideboard for? Or
I'm sure
type
there
of
is
strategy?
a specific deck. It's eluding me at this time. Paying
Sure.
2 over paying 1 is a significant cost. The reasoning is going to be because there are multiple things that you would needle in that matchup. Ah, here's one. Pithing Needle and Chalice of the Void. Don't play ball.
okay, so you could Chalice for 1 and then Sorcerer Spyglass
That
on
tracks.
2. You see, James going to be on the play here for game 2.
Looks like James keeping Temple and a Scry.
Yeah, both players keeping on 7 here. Multiple Matter Reshapers in the hand for Dan Musser. He's got that dilemma here where I'm always interested with it with Eldrazi Tron. He has Urza's Mine, Urza's Tower, and Eldrazi Temple in hand. So the question then is, do you want to try to draw the Tron, or do you want to try to draw the second Temple? Like, what do you lead on?
If you can set up turn 2 Thought-Knots here, then you lead on Temple. I think every other configuration, however, if you're not drawing to that, you just lead on a Tron land.
So he leads on Temple. So if he has Thought-Knot Seer in hand but no second Temple, you'd lead on Temple?
If you have one of those things. If you have them all, you know,
if you have
just
them
do
both,
it.
it's easy.
Certainly. But yeah, if you're drawing to one of those things, that's where you want to put this out there. Turn 2 Thought-Knot Seer is the payoff.
Turn 2 Pentad Prism for Wohlmacher. Dan draws Reality Smasher. Misses on the Thought-Knot, so he'll play Urza's Mine. But 3 mana means Matter Reshaper's online.
Modern All-Star.
Also Chalice of the Void. And it looks like he cares about Chalice more. He'll cast that on X equals 1. See if James responds.
Not a ton you can do at instant speed in the Ad Nauseam deck. Wouldn't matter
No.
to fire off an Angel's Grace there.
No, in the sideboard he has Echoing Truth, Disenchant, Hurkyl's Recall as ways to deal with this. But yeah, it looks like James will go to his turn just cast Phyrexian Unlife. I mean, next turn if he just has Ad Nauseam, he won't care about this Chalice.
Yep, that would do it. Not likely that Musser can cast a Chalice on 5.
Thought-Knot Seer, the play for Dan. That's a big one, though.
Yeah, that one is nice.
Let's try to hit that Ad Nauseam in James's hand the turn before he's going to cast it. Spoils the Vault, Angel's Grace, Pact, Negation. So, hey, that Chalice for 1's doing work here.
Indeed. Yeah, only castable card here is Pact and Negation.
Yeah, James could have, in theory, pacted this, spend all his Pentad Prism to pay, but then what?
Where does that leave him exactly?
Right.
You slow down Musser, you don't have the 4/4 anymore.
Yeah, Dan takes the Pact because nothing else in James's hand is castable right now.
Yep. His hand without a top deck was light on comboing next turn if the Chalice weren't there, but he could do it over 2 turns.
Well, he could do it in 1 turn if you see Laboratory Maniac here for James. It was possible if he had dropped, if the Chalice wasn't in play, he could play a 6th land, spoils
Right,
into
he needed
Ad Nauseam.
6th land is what I said.
Oh, yeah. You would need the 6th. Go back to Dan. Now, Laboratory Maniac here actually has an, if James can get rid of the Chalice, he has a very interesting combo line.
Name a modern legal card that's not in his deck, exile his deck, and then go to draw a card.
Here's Matter Shaper from Dan. So my question, having played Ad Nauseam, I've done this. Question is, what card do you name? It's a real style choice.
I haven't come up with an answer that I'm really into. There's a lot of default answers, but I think that if I had some time, I'd give you a good one. A lot of people say Lose Hope, things of that nature.
I name Primeval Titan. Then the person's like, you're not playing that, are you? It's like, no. But good question.
Might just name the best card in my opponent's deck.
And now Reality Smasher is going to try to close this game for Dan. It swings in with the other 2 Eldrazi. That's a swing of 12. James draws Serum Visions. He needs something like Hurkyl's Recall.
Yep.
But all these 1-mana cards. Angel's Grace, he's going to cast Serum Visions. Dan says no.
Wisely remembers to trigger his Chalice of the Void.
His whole hand costs 1 mana. It's Sleight of Hand, Angel's Grace, Spoils of the Vault. This is the best Chalice I've seen in a while. It's just
This is kind of how every Chalice that I play against works.
Man, I need to play more Chalices against you.
Chalice is really good.
This is... And your opponent plays it on 1, and then James draws 1-mana cards for the rest of the game. It's nice.
I mean, Modern as a format, it pressures you a lot towards playing 1- and 2-mana stuff.
Yeah, and this really is a strength of Eldrazi-tron. 4 copies of Chalice of the Void in the main deck. It allows you to win games like this.
Yep.
And here's a swing for lethal. And with a whole hand of uncastables, James takes damage. He's now gone into the negative. And full Tron assembled from Dan and Ulamog.
Lethal trigger. Get that unlife out of there.
Yeah, targeting the unlife. If you remove the unlife, then that -10 next to James's name is it's going to become quite the problem.
Stops being the kind of thing that we would even put on the screen in the first place.
And Dan Musser is going to win that one 2-0. A convincing win there for Eldrazi-tron.
Yep. Chalice of the Void, Thought Not Seer, excellent cards.